What's something that your parents have said to you that has stuck with you forever? Grandfather said it when I was 8. I'm 51 now. Life goes by incredibly fast. My mother told me you grow older but you still feel the same inside. I'm 62. She was right. My father said to me, you can count your true friends on one hand and have fingers left over. At the time, I was so trusting and naive. Looking back, having gone through everything that I have. My god, so true. My mother told me never to mistake lust for love. Just because you are desired does not mean you are valued. Amazing advice from two amazing people. Just because you are desired does not mean you are valued. Dang. This sent a stone to the pit of my stomach and a shiver down my spine. One of those things you never thought of but you know is true after you hear it. That applies to a lot of things. Thinking about it, I've got to meditate on this. Thanks for sharing. When my mum told me Brown Sugar by the Rolling Stones was about licking black pea, didn't think I'd ever hear my mum say that. I wish it was about this. The actually meaning is very disturbing. I was a teenager. I was being mouthy with my grandfather. Me, I'm not scared of you. Double quote. Grandfather, you don't have to be scared to have your butt beat. Double quote. Final summation. He was correct, but that line has stuck with me forever. You're gonna have to do a lot of things in life that you don't want to do. Pretty much any time I complained about doing anything, this was the response I got. It actually helped me deal with a lot of bulls in life, and also helped me get through new situations and experiences that I was nervous about. I say this to my kiddo all the time. I wish my parents said it to me. Instead they just let me quit stuff and avoid things I didn't want to do. Never throw orange juice at your husband. He walks away and you're left cleaning the mess. This may sound trivial, but it has definitely stuck. When I was learning to drive, I was practicing with my dad in the car and was being tailgated by a rich shat in a BMW on a winding back road where it was impossible to pass and there wasn't anywhere to pull off the road and let him go by. I was keeping to the posted speed limit because it totally made sense for that road. My dad could tell I was anxious about the situation, and he said, "Just remember, you're under no obligation to help them break the law. This actually applies in a lot of situations." My dad gave me some similar advice when I was learning to drive. I would get anxious too when someone would ride my tail on the road, and he would always say don't speed up for the person behind you. It's not like they are gonna pay for your speeding ticket. Be careful not to mistake ignorance for malice. In reference to drivers, it's easy to mistake poor driving as aggressive driving. I've found this advice to be useful in many contexts though. Hanlon's razor is a really useful thing I wish I could have learned at a young age. My mother told me to try and smile at anyone you come across because it might be the only smile they see that day. I was 6. I'm 51 too. We're everywhere. Better watch your 6, kiddies. We're in your intertubes. D Mario 52. If it won't go, don't force it. I was trying to shove crayons back in the box. But this holds true for so many things. Maybe you didn't spend enough time on foreplay with the box. Never point this at anything you don't intend to destroy. Once you pull the trigger, you can never take it back. And that's how dad taught me about the birds and the bees. JK, it was a gun safety lesson. Also, even if you're 100% sure it's not loaded, even if you just got done unloading it, it's still loaded. De tout façon vous savez que je vous aime. Meaning you know that I love you anyway. My father was not very emotional and never told us that he loved us, but that was enough for me. He was a little drunk, which is what allowed him to say something so touching. R.I.P. That's lovely, man. Thank you for sharing. Kind of a downer, but when I was around 12-13 my mother was crying, so I asked her why and she looked at me straight in the eye and told me that she felt bad that she couldn't love me because I didn't grow up like the child that she always wanted. I was a pretty ugly. My mother was pretty well known for her beauty and I had a horrible overbite, headgear, thick glasses, and a bowl cut and was extremely socially inept. Other people terrified me. Out of all the horrible things she's said to me in my lifetime, I think it's the one that hurts the most and still gets me to this day. My first breakup, I was destroyed. While ranting to my dad who was busy fixing the brakes on my car, turns around and says with the most serious fact, You're an 8. She was a 6. 8s don't date 6s and went back to work. Was the most random thing ever, and 10 years later it's probably the only thing I remember. Have fun, be good, I love you. My mom always used to tell me that before I would leave the house. I had it tattooed before she died. You just made me cry. If you're buying something you don't need, make sure you have at least twice the amount of money it costs first. Blows half of entire life savings on random crap. That as long as I was happy with my choices, I'd be supported all the way. I've decided to do the Trail of Hitler. Parents, I think we recant what we said. Dad, when I was almost 18, if someone can frick you over, they will frick you over. The ones that can and don't. Love you. Pretty dark and horrible, but it actually helped me avoid a lot of crap when I moved out on my own. Anytime I get in a car I hear my mom's voice in my head. Put your frickin' seatbelt on, reefer chiefer. Imagining a mom yell reefer chiefer is a great mental image. The mistakes of others don't justify your own. My dad told me over and over and it stuck with me. Not only true when you fight with your little sister, scales up to whole nations. My mom and I used to play checkers together often. Such a seemingly simple game. She used to beat me so bad every time. One time I was playing her. I got upset and I said, how do you do it every time? She stopped and she said, you think 2 steps ahead. If I move here it is because I say if I move here, he will move here. Then I can move here. You joke because I take too long to make a move, but I play each and every scenario out in my head. I think 2 steps ahead because at best, you are thinking only of one. If I want to get ahead and I want to win, then I have to be a step above you at all times, and that is how I win. She taught me so much with that one lesson. When I started hitting puberty, my mom told me that if anyone was going to see me naked, it should be in person. That way, I'll have chosen to show someone I've deemed worthy, so I should never let anyone put my naked body on film. You can never be sure who ends up seeing that. This was almost 20 years ago. I plan to pass this advice on to my own children someday. Seems more relevant than ever. I don't get the young aunts these days. Sigh. Mouths can't get pregnant. My dad to me in 8th grade. Now let me show you how it's done, son. A gentleman makes everyone feel comfortable. It struck me, because whenever we'd have guests, I'd always keep to myself and assume my parents would keep them entertained. After learning this, I'd leave my comfort zone more and more. It taught me how to engage people more genuinely. No, frick that. Nobody uses my daughter. You're better than that, said to me by my mum. She's right, and I remember those words every time I fall into my old habit of being a doormat. My mom said this to me when I was very young. Do not be dependent on others like me. My mom was a high school dropout and she married my dad very young and consequently had me and my brother before the age of 21. While they are still together after 30 years and very happy, my mom depended on my dad a lot and still does to this day. She wanted me to be independent and strong. Well, I joined the military, traveled all over the States as well as Europe, have a stable and thriving career, finished college, and now, married with a toddler. She tells me every time I see her that she's very proud of me and she's my inspiration. And now, married with a toddler. Oh, 0. Okay, well. I don't care what you do with your life, but just be a good person. My mom to me as a kid when I was trying to grow up without a male role model due to divorce and some other crap. Thanks, mom. This thread made me sad because I can't remember my mom ever saying something nice to me. Crap. I love you, son. Just pretend I'm your mom. Never erase someone's line to prove yourself better. Just make sure yours is bigger. When purchasing something you don't need, wait 24 hours before buying it. If it's still on your mind, it's worth the trip back. Chances are, you'll forget about it anyways. Millions of your brothers and sisters died so you could live. You better not frick this up. I feel like this is a BJ joke. If you have to do something you don't really enjoy, you might as well do your best at it. Always leave a place better than you found it. My dad told me this one when I was 5 and it has never left me. I was going through some mental health issues and my dad said to me, "I love you, but I don't like you." What he meant was that he didn't like that I was unwell, but it didn't come across that way. Men are not always very articulate when it comes to emotions. My dad often used to say stuff in a way that sounded wrong. My dad told me when I was learning to drive that I was controlling a very large weapon and I should always respect that. When my dad told me he respected the man I had become, and that he was proud of the way I treat other people, it was this beautiful recognition of the struggle I've gone through to never make my pain someone else's. The respect was influenced by me helping lead him through terrible depression following my mom leaving him, and then taking care of him for 6 months after his quadricep tore off of his kneecap. I was about to move in with my fiancé, but I delayed until he could walk again. I basically allowed him to hold on to his pride while he regained his health, body and mind. I don't know that he can adequately express his gratitude, but I can tell how much it meant to him. I was 14. My dad told me to get in the car and drove to the hardware store. On the way, he told me, "Your grandfather and I have worked very hard to give this family a good name. If you screw it up, you're gone." The only serious personal conversation we've ever had. I think, at the time, they suspected I had been smoking cigarettes. Being denounced by your family seems like an overreaction to smoking. A man will stick his junk in anything and only boring people get bored. My mom said a bored person is a boring person and used it as an excuse to ignore us. But to this day I feel guilty and my self-esteem tanks whenever I run out of things to do. My mom is an amazing woman, but I remember one time, offhandedly, she said something like, "Never date someone with a mental illness, they will only drag you down." Years later I have my own plethora of mental illnesses and what she said that time is always in the back of my mind. I am terrified of dragging down my partner. And this is partly why I am single and have no children. That fear of dragging them down. The fear of abandonment and the fear that my children would have to watch their mum go through and put them through. Heck. This will probably get buried, however. My dad told me, "Things are only as official as you pretend them to be." Made me question authority, not in a rebellious sense, but in a "does this person know what they're talking about" sense. Treat others with respect until they give you a reason not to. You're as dumb as a mule and twice as ugly. If a strange man offers you a ride, I say take it. Lousy traumatic childhood. Make sure that you regret things you have done, rather than things you haven't done. My dad told me when I was younger. Basically means that it's better to try for it, rather than forever thinking what if. Always drive so that everybody else gets home safely. My mom told me that strings and thongs were the best creations ever. She was right. I thought they increase your odds of getting some bacterial thing, because it shifts a lot and the same spot can go from touching your anus to your vag. Eat all the rice in your bowl or your husband will have pox marks on his face. Yeah, I believed that as a kid. Still eat every scrap of food off my plate. Thank goodness it's not true. BC my husband leaves so much food bits on his plates. You have been visited by the source Chihuahua. You will be blessed with good pasta, but only if you comment simmer well. Papa simmer well papa. Like and subscribe, you magnificent person.